What's up, everybody? I've got to go get a haircut in about 7-8 minutes, so I gotta make this a video fairly quickly, but I do want to hit on a couple points. So today's video is a little bit different. I wanted to talk about living in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, as they say, in California, and tell you guys and gals if it's worth living here. Um, I've lived, I was born and raised in the Bay Area, and so I think I know what has been going on and the changes that have occurred over the years. I've been pretty much here my entire life. I had some short stints off and on away from the Bay Area, going to college and whatnot, but I spent a good majority of my life here, so I kind of know what I'm talking about. So let's just talk about some of the positives. I think one of the biggest positives of living in the Bay Area, if you plan on, if you're in another state and you come here, the biggest positives, is the weather. It's a little bit of a glare right now, but it is July of 2019 at the timing of this video. Hopefully I'll get this video out fairly soon. And the weather is just absolutely beautiful. We have these occasional heat waves once in a while, but this past 4th of July, it was like a high of like 82 degrees. No humidity right now. I think it's about a sunny 75 degrees right now at a 10-20 in the morning. The winters, we don't have snowstorms. It rarely doesn't get that cold. I think on average in the wintertime it'll drop down in the nighttime when you're asleep in your home. You can drop down once in a while to like 28, 30, but in general it'll be like 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and in the morning time it'll be like 55 degrees Fahrenheit. And a lot of Californians were just spoiled with the weather, and we'll complain about that. But we don't get these extremes, especially in the Bay Area. Now, if you go more towards the peninsula, more towards the water, the Bay, like San Francisco, it gets much cooler. But in general, if you are tired of terrible winter months in the East Coast or Midwest, then this is the place to be. Also, although we do need the rain, it doesn't rain too often. I know, like in Seattle, in the northwest, it can rain a lot, and that can be pretty depressing. I like to have my sunlight, and sunlight's good for you to a certain extent. So yeah, the weather is just phenomenal. The other positive is if you're in the tech industry, obviously, San Jose, Mountain View, Los Gatos, San Mateo, Menlo Park. I mean, these are all cities where the big companies are. San Bruno, YouTube, Facebook, eBay, Netflix. Did I say Google? I can't remember. Just pretty much everything is just right here. So I know one of my brother-in-laws, he's from the East Coast, the Chicago area. He moved for a tech position and eventually met my sister, and they got married, so it can definitely work out. So that's another positive. A lot of opportunities in the tech sector. The pay generally is higher depending on what type of job you get, but I'm going to get into that in a quick second. There is a small caveat to that. So yeah, the pay, depending on the type of profession you're in, can be on the higher end. The weather is great, but as far as the negatives, it's the Golden State, but it's not so golden all the time. I've seen a lot of things transpire and change, and one of the negatives of living in the Bay Area, and the most obvious one, is the cost of living. Over the years, the cost of living has just skyrocketed. Now, if you bought a home back in the heyday and you have a 30-year mortgage, let's say you bought your home in like 1980, then you're cashing in big time. Your value of your home is probably, let's say you bought a home for the value was $300K. Depending on the area, it's probably upwards of up to $2 million. But the price of living here is obscene. I mean, there are people in Sunnyvale that are paying over $2 million for not even a 2,000 square foot home. Not even a 2,000 square foot home, and it's not even renovated, and you don't even get a good backyard. It's insane. My wife and I moved slightly south of the Bay Area because we wanted a little bit more house, but even that, we're paying over $16,000 in property tax a year. The monthly mortgage is doable, but the property tax is what gets you. You can either pay it in two chunks, which we do, or you can, what's the word I'm looking for? You can roll it into your monthly, but we decided to pay in two chunks. So that's a huge negative. But retracting quickly back to the positive before I go back to the negative. If you do have money to spend, I'm not saying we're rich or anything, but if you have a decent, I guess you could say this about any city, but if you have a decent money amount to have and you're not struggling in the Bay Area, that would be a potential positive. But anyway, going back to the negative, yeah, if you're cash, seriously, if you're strapped for cash and you see something about you see brochures or commercials about sunny California and all this great opportunity. Well, if you don't have the money, I mean, even $1 million home in the Bay Area doesn't get you anything. It might get you in the ghetto. You might be lucky to even get a townhouse. So the housing is just crazy. Now, is there a bubble? Will it burst like in 2008? I don't know. I'm not an economist. I don't know for sure. But as of right now, it's just insane. So it's one of the biggest negatives. The other thing is that I would say because the landscape of the Bay Area has changed, a lot of families that have lived here over the years have been priced out and they've been driven out, moving to Texas. My family wasn't driven out, but they decided to move to Texas. A lot of people are moving out of the Bay Area to other parts of California, Sacramento, the Central Valley, Livermore, did I say Sacramento already? Sorry. Parts a little bit in the outskirts, a little bit cheaper because the pricing houses are a little bit more reasonable. Also, they're also going to the Northwest, to Portland, Oregon. That's why a lot of out-of-towners, Colorado, Arizona, a lot of out-of-towners are not taking a liking to the Californians migrating out of California because we're driving prices over there and their rent is going higher. And speaking of rent in general is just going through the roof. When these tech companies come, they have to pay higher wages, and with these higher wages, they have to pay higher wages because it needs to justify the cost of living. So yeah, those are one of the huge negatives. Real quick, backtracking to the positives. Sorry, I'm going back and forth. I'm just gonna roll whatever comes off my tongue. The proximity of things that you can do in the Bay Area, like for me, we are 45 minutes away from multiple beaches, 45 minutes, hour away from wine country, from Sonoma, Napa, 45 minutes away from San Francisco, some of the greatest eateries in the country, the delicious food in San Francisco. Sports, if you're a big sports fan, we have tons of sports teams. One hockey team, San Jose Sharks. You got the Giants, you got the A's. Now the Raiders are going to leave, but you got the Niners, you got the Warriors, of course, right here. So if that's what you like, there's tons of things to do, but you got to have the money. So I've got to make it back to this, go to this appointment right now. So if you ever think about going to the Bay Area, one last thing, the whole thing about being phased out, I think when people get phased out and priced out, I think what happens is the sense of community starts to be lost, and there's a lot of just assholes that come from other parts, of the country getting, they don't have a sense of community, so they come here. And I've heard stories where I just heard one recently and it happens where a guy, African American gentleman, was in a apartment complex visiting a friend, and some white guy that works in the tech industry, he just called the cops on him because he thought he was like a criminal. And not to say this doesn't happen in other areas, but you hear about this more and more. Maybe it's a combination of because we all have cameras now, phones, but anyway, there's some bigots. The drivers here are freaking absolutely terrible, very aggressive. I'm used to it, but I've noticed that more and more ever since I traveled more to other parts of the country. The hospitality in general, it's just everyone's kind of to themselves, and I admit that because I think we're all go. I think people are just so, not to excuse their behavior, but I think a lot of people are just struggling to make ends meet, and they're focusing on, they're tired, so they don't have time to say hi. I mean, they probably should, that's not an excuse, but I think the grind of just surviving in the Bay Area, I think you just get so worn out, so that sense of calmness, like when I was in New Orleans, Texas, they say, ma'am, thank you. You don't see that quite here, and you will notice that. So that's my time in a nutshell. I gotta go get this mop cut. So if you ever think about living in the Bay Area, let me know your thoughts. Those are my honest, true thoughts. If you ever decide to live here or you decide to move, that's clearly up to you. It remains to be seen if my family and I eventually want to stay here. I guess probably will for a while, but in the future we shall see. That's my time. Talk to you later. Bye.